Over the last 7 days of this outbreak, we've seen over 275,000 Victorians come forward for testing. Over that same period, we've delivered over 95,600 vaccinations through our state clinics, now making a total of 476,000 vaccinations delivered since the start of our vaccination programme through our state clinics, part of the 1.1 million doses allocated to Victorians in the last few months. And my thanks in particular, of course, to everybody working in the vaccination stations and the vaccination centres over a very busy 7-day cycle, and of course our GPs all across the state, who of course are a critical part of the vaccination effort. As the Acting Premier has said, over the last 7 days we've also identified over 4,200 primary close contacts. We're continuing to see a very encouraging set of negative results come back for those primary close contacts. Over 77% of those identified have already returned a negative test result. And of course, with the huge numbers of tests going through the system, we're continuing to see that number go up. And we have now 279 exposure sites. Those numbers continue to rise. There are a number of particular exposure sites that I'd really like to draw people's attention to. This includes JMD Grocers on High Street in Epping, the Healthy India on Broadway in Reservoir, the Inde Filipino store in Footscray Market, and the Thai Hai Butcher also in Footscray Market. These, and of course a number of the other Tier 1 exposure sites we have out on our website, are really important to us. We really want to establish who's been to these locations, capture as many people as possible, and make sure we get them tested and isolated as swiftly as we can. We've talked over the last few days about a number of other leading lines of investigation. We talked about a number of pubs and clubs venues. Again, we've seen a really good response on those. Over 730 primary close contacts have now come forward. Over 3/4 of those have now returned a negative test result, and that is a very encouraging sign for us. We have a number of local food markets, local grocery stores, around 15 units in particular, that we've been working with over the last few days. Again, 60 primary close contacts identified in those small stores. 83% of those have now returned a negative test result. We've looked at a significant party, a birthday party at the Grand in Epping last weekend. 186 primary close contacts. Over half of those, over 100, have now returned a negative test result. And the students and staff at Mount Ridley College, we've got around 700 going through the testing programme at the moment. There are 30 of particular interest. Of those 30, 23 have already returned a negative test result. So on those leading lines of investigation, from a point of view of community engagement, response, contact tracing and follow through, we are making very, very solid progress, but there remains more work to be done. And we're very, very keen to close those remaining gaps to make sure we've got a lock on those particular lines of investigation. The Minister has referred, of course, to our major concern at the moment we talked about yesterday, of course, which is our aged care outbreak that we're now working with. We have now tested 70 staff in the our care unit that we identified yesterday. Of those 70 staff, 69 have returned a negative test result. 1 has returned a positive result. We have tested 76 residents. 1 resident has returned a positive result. The other 75 have returned a negative result. So we have an ongoing, of course, a lot of work to do, both with our care in Maidstone, as well, of course, the Blue Cross in Sunshine, where there is a staff member who overlaps between those 2 locations. And we'll continue, of course, to support our colleagues in the aged care sector and the Commonwealth to follow through on those issues. With regards to the wider vaccination programme, 38 clinics are open today. We are continuing to run extended hours. We saw a really good turnout at the weekend, over 16,000 vaccinations done yesterday compared to the normal 2,000 or 3,000 that we see. So it's a really, really strong effort. We are seeing particularly strong queues and busy queues in the morning, but the afternoons are fairly quiet. So please, we'd encourage you, for those people who want to walk up for your AstraZeneca vaccine, if you're over 50, you can do so. Please check the queues during the course of the afternoon. They are significantly shorter. We would like to make every utilisation of the capacity that we have. We want to get as many people as we can vaccinated through those clinics as we possibly can. And of course, a big shout out to the GPs who continue to do their part. And I know many GP surgeries are so busy at this time of year. My thanks to all the work they're doing to get as many vaccines through as we possibly can. I would just also have a reminder, it is critically important for those people who want to get their vaccine done. It is so important that you feel well. If you have any symptoms whatsoever, do not go to a vaccine centre. Go and get yourself tested. Let me repeat, if you have any symptoms, if you're a primary close contact, do not go to a vaccine centre, go to a testing centre, get tested and isolate. We cannot afford the risk of people who are potentially symptomatic going into our vaccination centres. It's critical that only those who are healthy and well get to the vaccine so we can actually move ourselves forward. Finally, from the point of view of testing, of course, we're seeing a phenomenal demand for testing. And again, I add my thanks to those of the acting Premier for all the staff and pathology teams working to sustain sort of this incredible rhythm in our testing operations. 210 sites are open. We have a particularly large site at the showgrounds, 8 lanes. If you are, you can, as of course was one of the reasons to leave your home, you can leave your home to get tested. If you need to cross the 5K boundary to get to the best testing centre for you, that is okay. But please, let's make use of all the capacity we have out there. I would particularly encourage the following people to get tested. Anybody, anywhere in Victoria who has any symptoms, no matter how slight, please come and get tested today. If you've been to any of the exposure sites, and please check again, they change all the time, and particularly those small local grocery stores in our northern suburbs, if you've been to those locations at any time in the last 2 weeks, please come and get tested today. And if you're one of the fantastic workers in our aged care sector, if you have not been tested in the last few days, we'd encourage you to please come forward and get tested. The more information we have, the quicker we can run this emerging outbreak to ground in that sector. Finally, my thanks to the whole Victorian community. I know this has been a really challenging week. We've seen a phenomenal response from people in terms of testing, in terms of vaccination, and of course in adopting those COVID-safe behaviour. We have more work ahead of us. We are making phenomenal progress of the work that we have to do so far, and we need your support over the days ahead to make sure we continue this progress.